Okay, so the agenda, today's agenda is we're gonna have Interfaith speaker Michelle Singh come and perform. Then we're gonna do a question and answer session. Then the artist is gonna perform with including a show and tell and an actual dance. And then we'll do a question and answer session as well for the artist, followed by a conclusion. So we're going to give the mic over to Reverend Michelle Singh. She's the Executive Director of Faith and the Common Good. Michelle has been extensively engaged in Canada's interfaith movement. Her accomplishments include co-founding a multi-faith spiritual dialogue circle and acting as the board member and steering committee co-chair for the 2018 Parliament of the World Religion. I met Michelle at the Parliament of World Religion 2018 event, and I was very much impressed when I heard her speak, and we're still in touch. So Michelle, please come have the mic and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Arzu.
Great, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to share a little bit with you this evening. As Arzu mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of Faith and the Common Good, and I'm also an interfaith minister, as well as the Vice Chair for the Toronto Steering Committee for World Interfaith Harmony Week. You know, interfaith is an interesting word. I come from a Catholic Sikh family, originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the West Indies. And I don't recall ever hearing that word growing up, but my lived experience was that there was always more than one faith in the home. In my home, the home of family members and friends. So interfaith is something that I only got to know about in the early 2000s, and that led me down a path to you tonight. My intention is really just to give you a high-level overview of some of the initiatives, the interfaith initiatives I'm familiar with, and I'm very open to any questions. As you probably know, women of faith have been working towards a more inclusive, just, and sustainable world that works for everyone, really for eons. We've been addressing issues around social justice, climate justice, poverty, the dignity of women, and so much more. Arzu mentioned the Parliament of the World's Religions, where we met in 2018. And at that time, I was part of the Parliament of Women's Task Force. It was an international team of women that came together to address things such as gender injustices, including the fact that more women than men practice religion, yet there are more men in leadership roles. During that time, we developed an international declaration to end sexual violence that we invited faith leaders to sign. We created a Dignity of Women poster. On Wikipedia, there are two projects, the Dignity of Women's Sacred Teachings and 1,000 Women in Religion. As you probably know, for the most part, women, our stories have been left out. And so this was a very important initiative for many of the women on our task force to be involved in. I just wanted to mention as well that at the first parliament, which was actually in 1893, there were two women speakers on stage, which was pretty extraordinary considering that it was 1893. They were Elizabeth Cady Stanton, author of the Women's Bible, and Antoinette Brown Blackwell, who was the first woman ordained in the US. I just wanted to give you a little bit of that background and now move ahead to some of the organizations I'm familiar with in Toronto and across Canada. Early interfaith adopters like Friedel Brief, she was the director of multi-faith programming for Vision TV in the early 2000s, but in the late 70s, she was part of a national meeting that was held in Quebec. It invited representatives from different faith communities to come together, and it really provided the impetus for the development of the interfaith movement in Toronto. Now, that event invited men and women, but I highlight it because of the fact that it was the impetus for the development of the interfaith movement in Toronto. One of the things that Friedel said was that people were initially uncertain of each other. This kind of gathering hadn't really happened before. Some of them belonged to faiths that actively sought converts, while others belonged to faiths that felt preyed upon by other faiths. And so at the beginning, each regarded the other with some level of suspicion, including within their own faith groups. This group of people were the first members of their faiths who were presenting interfaith dialogue as a bridge to understanding and acceptance. And that was met with some skepticism even within their own faiths. In around the late 1989, early 1990s, Women's Interfaith Dialogue, which was a coalition of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim women, produced a variety of multi-faith education programs, including a women's interfaith Seder, a speaker series with multi-faith panels, and comparative scripture study sessions. Eventually, that inspired another group of Jewish and Muslim women called Shema and Ikra. This group had instituted a Jewish-Muslim planting project for youth and an art exhibit that explores texts and contexts in the work of Jewish and Muslim artists. One Voice is a fairly new initiative that started, unfortunately, just before the pandemic started. It's a multi-faith alliance of women that have been working together to end violence around women. Specifically, we've been working on a toolkit that is designed for faith leaders to help them to respond to violence against women in their faith communities. One Voice is a program of the National Council of Jewish Women Canada, Toronto chapter. And it includes women, of course, from the Jewish community. There are Catholics and Muslims, including Ismailis, Anglicans, interfaith folks, Baha'is, and other denominations. There's an international organization that I wanted to introduce you to. Some of you might be familiar with, Women of Spirit and Faith. This particular organization has been convening opportunities for women to be in relationship with each other within the context of feminine principles. It's very intentionally designed that way. So what do I mean by feminine principles? Such as shared leadership, where every woman is valued as a leader. Collaboration, where every voice is heard and the wisdom of every woman is invited. Circle principles, all of the interactions, meetings, events, and offerings use a circle process. Again, everyone is on the same level. We practice modeling rather than teaching, offering lived experience, and paying attention to patriarchy, knowing when we find ourselves falling into an unconscious default to hierarchy and patriarchal values. Women of Spirit and Faith collaborates with women organizations across the world, and also participates in the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. In 2011, they published collaboratively again a book that's called Women, Spirituality, and Transformative Leadership, Where Grace Meets Power. I really encourage you to get your hands on it if you can. It shares some very powerful stories. Sarah also known as the Spiritual and Religious Alliance for Hope, is an organization that envisions a world where women's equality is fully realized to achieve a world that is equitable and honoring of all of creation. Now, they partner with women's and men's organizations to develop programming that deals with issues around women and girls leadership, violence, poverty, human rights, health, economy, and so much more. There's an ecumenical organization, one in particular that I'm going to highlight, called Women's Interchurch Council of Canada. And they offer dialogue and collaboration between different Christian denominations. Their programming also includes ending violence against women and supporting First Nations women's organizations in Canada. The Women's Interfaith Network is an international initiative that invites women of all ages, abilities, beliefs, cultures, faiths, to really learn about and value our similarities as well as our differences. I think what's really intriguing about this organization is they recognize the need to eradicate stereotypes and prejudice, first within their own communities, in order to promote our common humanity and build a peaceful world. Gather the Women Global Matrix is a network of women and women's organizations. Again, it's a container where women feel supported, receive the tools that they need to enable and encourage them to be activists and women of influence who can really have an impact in their communities. Arzu mentioned the Spiritual Dialogue Circle that I helped to found in 2009. We've been meeting for 13 years now, and that group was founded by 3 women, myself, a Baha'i friend of mine, and a Unitarian friend of mine. Well, and everyone is welcome in that circle. People of faith and no faith, and all genders have a safe space to explore and listen deeply and learn from each other. We've always said that that was our way of not only fostering peace within ourselves, but really fostering peace in the world. Wanted to share with you too, World Interfaith Harmony Week. Now, this isn't specifically a women's interfaith initiative. However, women around the world have been hosting events underneath this umbrella since its inception in 2010. It's an initiative that was adopted by the UN General Assembly in October 2010. Since then, women have been dealing with things ranging from addressing mental health issues, interfaith festivals that included music, poetry, film, and prayer. Indigenous sisters who have spoken about the sacredness of and the need to protect water. Interfaith solidarity and bearing witness to the persecution of the Rohingyas, breaking the silence of women who experience violence in their communities. What I really wanted to highlight is the common denominator of women working together to make an impact in the world, to make it a better world for women and for girls, and to empower each other, to provide the resources and the tools so that we can learn together. We can create new models of working together. We can use our feminine principles to shift narratives that we find ourselves currently stuck in. So those are just a few of the organizations I wanted to highlight, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So everyone, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask those.
I will say, Kaylee, that my internet is a little bit unstable, so I apologize if I was cutting in and out. Hopefully it will get better.
Yeah. Michelle, thanks. How is your group or groups responding to the recent sort of rediscovery of Indigenous children's graves, unmarked graves, and so forth? Are you working on a position, or just how is your groups involved in that?
I'm involved in many different groups, and different groups are taking different approaches. I will say that faith in the common good, one of our approaches is we've just extended an offer to our national network to join us in creating community in doing the course, the Indigenous Canada course that's offered by the University of Alberta. We're going to start in January. We'll use that course as our foundation, and our intention is to invite additional Indigenous speakers to speak to the participants during that time. You know, I'm a firm believer that before we can get to reconciliation, we have got to face the truth. And that means educating ourselves. So initially our work is going to be around education, and we also participate in a number of different advocacy initiatives as well. And you're all invited to join us if you would like to do so.
Well, I'd be interested in hearing, Michelle, more about those initiatives and what it is that you'd be doing. Like what kind of activities would your group or groups be involved in moving forward?
Yes, please elaborate. Yeah, I think we'd be interested.
Yes. I have to say, we just announced that we were going to do this, so we haven't fully designed the program. So that's what we'll be doing over the next couple of months in order to launch in January. One of the things, I don't know if you're familiar with the blanket exercise that gives, it's offered by a couple of different organizations such as Kairos, such as PWDRF. I always get those initials mixed up. But it's an opportunity, particularly for settlers, to have an experiential, to do an experiential exercise, to have a sense of what it meant for Indigenous peoples who were continuously being moved off their land. It involves being, when we were doing it in a physical space, we would be standing on top of a map, and you would have less and less space, and there's lessons that go along with it. I understand that there's an organization who, due to COVID, developed this to be able to do it online. So that's one of the things that we're examining. And I think a major part of what we will be doing is in inviting speakers to address our network is to create the space for people to listen and also to be uncomfortable with the truth. I think what we've seen in the past few months, the fact of the matter is we've known about these unmarked graves for a very long time.
I mean, lots of people have known they're there. That's why I said rediscovered. Lots of people knew they were there.
So I think part of the process that we're in now, and I think COVID has had an impact on that, is that more people are paying attention. More people are actually experiencing, at a small level, I want to say, the pain, the trauma that Indigenous peoples have experienced. And I want to be very respectful of that. I cannot know the level of another person's trauma and pain, but I can have empathy when I'm faced with that truth. And I think those kinds of things start to make a difference.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions?
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Michelle for her presentation tonight. We're excited to hear about new initiatives all the time. Perhaps as you go forward, you can bring news back, and we'll see how BPW and you could perhaps partner and women supporting women. That's what we're all about. So
Absolutely. Yes, I would love to talk to you more about that as we develop that particular program as well.
Yeah. And a lot of your themes and directions, while I understand the interfaith component, bringing women of different faiths together, a lot of them are, is the feminist agenda, not a current government or but
Yes.
a feminist agenda in general, right? Women and girls empowering, whether it's, in our communities in Canada or around the world. Probably all of us, varying degrees, are involved in different organizations that are supporting that, whether it's BPW or other organizations.
Yes.
And so in a sense, you're also doing that, empowering girls and girls and women, but also boys and men too. I'm learning more and more. I mean, I kind of knew it all along, but it was kind of becoming more and more. In a lot of communities, the men are the real decision makers. So it's not so much in Canada maybe, but in a lot of other countries. So it's really important to involve them in the decision making, because women may not have as much power as we think they do. And by incorporating them as well, it strengthens the position, right?
Absolutely.
And as we know, women, when you support women, you're supporting their families and their communities, because they're looking, within that unit, but also in a broader sense. And it sounds like the work that you're doing in your different groups and affiliations is that it's really with that mission.
Absolutely, that's true.
Neat. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone will be moving to the next segment of our event.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so very much, Michelle, for being here with us, for participating in this event. I've learned a lot. Thank you. So now we've brought forward an international artist, Nefertiti San Miguel. She's the founder of Etnia Fusion. Nefertiti is an internationally recognized artist who's versed in dance, educational programs, and functional arts. As you can see, the title of the event is Women Empowerment Through Interfaith Dialogue in Arts. So I chose dance as for the arts segment because dance relates strongly to women empowerment. It also relates to interfaith events because both dancing and dialogue are a way of sharing personal beliefs and commonalities between cultures and religions. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Nefertiti's dance. This piece was specially created for the Cambridge Arts Council in celebration of the 2012 River Festival. It is it is basically a fusion of dances from Far East, Oriental, combative arts, weaponry, and Japanese-inspired performing arts with mask work from behind the mask studio. The dance style is Asian fusion. Song is Marutsuki by Michio Koga from the album Flowers of Silk. Props are fighting fan and theatrical mask inspired by Japanese notator, handcrafted by master mask maker Eric Bornstein from behind the mask studio. Now again, we are going to move to with Nefertiti, who's going to do a show and tell and the dance performances after that. So Nefertiti, please go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much for the invitation to be part of your group. And I just want to do a quick show and tell in sort of preview to the video of my dance performance. And I have here the mask that you're going to be seeing in the video. And this is one of the theatrical masks that I use for my performances. This one is lovingly called The Lady, but also No Face. And I have done many different choreographies with her. We have been around literally all across the US, and we have a lot of history together. So the viewing is very limited when you're performing with this mask. You can only see, and I'm going to get it up close, through the eyes down below here. There's a small mesh. So the vision is very limited when you are on a stage, but it's very eye-catching when you have the lighting and the proper attire. It has a wig, and it's very long, so you can play with this and do a little bit of a hairstyle, do some ornamentations and accessories. So you can dress it up, dress it down a little bit as you wish, depending on the occasion. And over the years, I have been very passionate about not only history, but different accessories and implements and how I can fusion those into my choreography. And I have a collection of fans. So I wanted to do a quick show and tell of some of the items that I use for my performances. And this is a fighting fan. It's designed for self-defense. It has metal blades on the back. So it's very graceful, very feminine, but it can be very powerful as well. And I use them for some of my choreographies. Then I have the Tai Chi style fan, and it's much lighter weight. It has a little bit of a design on the front, and you can see on the back, the panels, they are plastic. So it's just much lighter weight and easier to maneuver when you are doing either exercises or a choreography. And then this one here, it was sent to me actually from a fellow performer who has a Japanese-Canadian organization based in British Columbia. She is a Japanese dancer, often goes to Japan, and she kindly bought this for me and sent it via postal service. And it has the silk case in orange, and it matches the fan. And this one is a traditional dancing fan. It's double-sided, and the mechanics are different. It doesn't open and close as easy as this one here, that you can just snap it and work in different fashion. This one, you have to be more mindful on the usage, and you open and close with two hands. But because it's double-sided and the way that it's constructed, you can do certain tricks like spin the fan in this fashion, which you can do with the other ones, and then do different wrist movements and carry on with your choreography. You can hide behind it. You can, for example, do the movement of it's raining. You can fan yourself in a very feminine fashion. So it depends what you're working on and the rest of the environment, you manipulate the fan. And I have many other, I am very passionate about collecting fans, but these three are one of the most popular for me to incorporate on my dance performances because they are Japanese, Asian, and martial art related. But just to give you a quick show on difference of the type of fans, this is a lace fan, more on the Spanish flamenco fashion, all black. It's much more smaller, but it's very dressy, very feminine, and it can be functional during a hot evening on a summer day, and you just go and rock your style. So this is just a little bit of show and tell on one of my passions, which is using different implements for dance performances, as well as honoring the feminine spirit. And I advocate always for some glamour and bring back some history. And I have done my own research, and it doesn't really matter which part of the world you are from. I'm pretty sure that part of your history is going to involve at some point the use of fans, whether there were colonial times, there were royal times, and I find it just fascinating how we can be so different, but so interconnected and have so many different common, so many different things that it seems to be apart, but at the same time, it brings us together. So I always advocate for cultural diversity, for cultural ethnicity, and it's a great pleasure to share my craft and my passion with you ladies. And if there's any way that I can be of service to your community at a different level, or if you have any other future events where you think that my craft can be of service to your audience, I will be at your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Nefertiti. So now we're going to be sharing the video of your dance.
Okay.
So thank you so very much, Nefertiti. That was amazing. I'm sharing the link to this particular dance and in the chat. So
yes, I have a YouTube channel with few other choreographies. So you can go to the Etnia Fusion by Nefertiti YouTube channel. And I have a vast array of choreographies, not only in the Asian fusion fashion, but also Hawaiian and Polynesian, along with some other fun projects. So feel free to browse around and be my guest in Etnia Fusion channel.
Thank you for the presentation, but I also enjoyed your introduction to different kinds of fans. I just never even thought that some fans would be very easy to, flip, and other ones, due to the structure and the purpose of them, were more static. And the function of that, yeah.
Actually, I have two more that I want to show you since we're talking about that, and I have them here handy, and I'm just so passionate about it. So this is more on the fashion of what is called paddle fan. And this one, it was gifted to me about a year ago, came from Mexico, and the base, it's wooden. It's a wooden handle, and then it has the woven part with natural fabric. And then this one, it's used for modern Chinese dance, and it has a total different flair. Has a little bit of extra fabric here, so it's very flowy.
Sort of like a flamenco fan.
So there are so many different kinds, and I'm just very passionate. I have fans everywhere. And every time that somebody travels and they want to get on my good side, they bring me fans as gifts and, you know, little souvenirs from their travels. And it's a beautiful thing. And if it's any interest, I do presentations around fans. I bring like a good collection. I do a show and tell. I even do a quick martial art demonstration for self-defense with a fan. And I joke about with some of my friends and say, you know, it will be pretty pitiful for a guy to get beat up by a fan and have to confess that he was not being too proper and he just got smacked by a fan, you know? So I just like to keep it on the light side and be humorous about it, because that's part of keeping life entertaining and kind of on the colorful side. So
well, be careful what you wish for. We might invite you back to do a presentation on fans and feminism.
Oh, I'm totally up for that. I can go to town.
Arzu, write it down. Yeah, it was very interesting. When I looked at them, I'm going, yes, there's all different sizes and shapes and so forth. But in that context, right? And the textures and so forth. Yeah. And probably have different sounds as well, right? And different emotions even in them.
Actually, this one, usually when I do it on a stage, it wakes people up because you don't anticipate that the sound is going to be so dramatic. So be aware and prepare. This is the one with the metal blades. And it doesn't sound too much as it is right now, but if you are in an adequate space with the proper acoustic, it can be very scary. But then this one, you have to use both hands because it just doesn't have the flick. So you just have to like present it and gracefully open it and then do your thing. So I am very passionate about this. I can go whole day long about it and do as many show and tells that anybody wants. So I will be delighted to do a more in-depth presentation of my fan collection. It's always fun. And maybe next thing you know, that's your passion too. You start decorating and having part of your ambience, some fans here and there.
How did you get started with your fan collection, and what was your first fan? How did you get going with this?
It has been kind of an evolving process because I grew up in a very eclectic environment. Some of my family members were in the diplomatic work, and I had always contact with people from different parts of the world. And some of my heritage is Spaniard from mainland Spain, gypsies. And it's part of the culture, you know, it's a whole language and dress up code when you're using the, what is called the pericon, and that it's a Spanish fan. So because my homeland, I am originally from Venezuela, it was colonized by Spain. We have a lot of traditions that carry on from the colonial times, and some of them had to do with the lace fan from the colonial times. So it started being familiar in my environment, but then I started exploring with performing arts and dancing, and then through my own travel and my own experiences and getting involved into martial arts and the theatrical work, I started experimenting and doing weird things that not many people were doing. Like, it got me into troubles because once upon a time I was part of a traditional, if you want to call it that way, Japanese performing group. And I started taking martial art classes, and I was doing my own choreography. So that got me a little bit of trouble. And it had been just an evolution of things coming my way, different circumstances. You listen to a soundtrack, you have an idea for a choreography, you start playing with the fan. And it's just a mixture of what represents to me the cultural aspect of it, the feminine side of it, the different functions that you can give to a fan, because it can be part of a dress code, it can be part of a costume, it can be part of your decoration, it can be self-defense, it can be for health, if you take it, for example, in the Tai Chi approach, which is all for the breathing exercises and getting more lean movements on your body. So there are so many fascinating things about the fan, how you can connect it and make it part of your lifestyle. And that's pretty much what I do. I see fans from different places in the world and I make it part of my personal experience, and I bring that to the audience. Like in this case, I have the great pleasure to share that with you.
They're truly beautiful. Just
Most interesting, and most interesting, just kind of the different aspects of our theme tonight. You know, Michelle's work with her groups, interfaith, but working on a lot of feminist ideals within and outside the faith groups, and then your aspect of it as well, right? Looking at fans as a communication tool, right? Yeah, most interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And also I enjoy the part of the, not only the show and tell, but how some people can connect with that, because for many, the fan is kind of thing of the past. And they might say, oh, I remember my great grandmother having a fan. And then that sparks a whole nother conversation around family history and cultural backgrounds. And even if it's just younger people, which I do special programming for after school programs, and also, for example, summer camps, having the kids experience the fan, and then they don't think about, oh, that's all. They want to get their hands on it, and it's part of their experience. And they might be the next ones carry on the tradition of doing a fan dance, so keeping it alive, that part of history and tradition. So there are so many different layers in the presentation that I bring. So whatever serves as inspiration or motivation, I feel well served if I can deliver smiles and spark a little bit of creativity and inspiration at any level. So I'm super happy to be here and share this with you.
Great. Thank you so very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Reverend Michelle and Nefertiti, for sharing your work with us. I believe we've learned a lot. The reason I organized this event along with my team members from BPW Ottawa is that I've learned that interfaith dialogue and arts are together a very strong combination that improve understanding of people's experiences and beliefs. We hope to eventually eliminate women abuse, reducing social issues such as the impact of the she session that's caused by the COVID-19. So this is actually going to be a series. We're gonna do more of the same event with the same title and different artists and speaker over time. And this way we'll be empowering women by telling them, by showcasing strengths of other women.
Oh, please,
Michelle, I see that Michelle had put something in the chat about being introduced to PPW. I believe you're in the GTA area of Toronto. There's many groups in the Toronto area that we could put you in touch with, or seek them out on the internet. There's quite a few in the area. Yeah, so Michelle, because I know you're having problems with your connectivity. So somehow, somewhere, we'll get information out to you so you can connect with local groups. Because in these times, I think it's even more important for women to connect. We know that Zoom's not great. We're all zoomed out, but at the same part, we're all, not panicked. What do you call that? We're all wanting connectivity with friends and colleagues and different people that inspire us in different ways. And definitely tonight, that's been the case. It's been most fascinating. Arzu, thank you for the suggestion of tonight's theme. It was Arzu's idea. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
No problem.
I think that concludes our program.